Welcome, Radhe Radhe, very warm welcome to all of you to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you had a wonderful day or having a great start to your day. We will continue on our discussion, the topic of surrender, and we will try to map it to some practical situations on how do we implement that. Also, we'll talk about grace, and then of course, we'll start with the soul soup segment that like we always do. So let me get started. Open up, share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
We'll start with our opening prayers like we always do. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening. A very warm welcome to all of you once again. So let's get started. Today I have picked up, I'm going to move a little further in Bhagavad Gita because we are talking about the topic of surrender, and these shlokas are going to help us drive the discussion forward. So let me pull it up, and we are going to go through these. So one is 411 that we have already gone through, and then I picked up 18th chapter as well. Okay, so I'm going to recite it, and then you're welcome to follow along. So we have two shlokas, so we can split that way. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tastatthaiva bhajamyaham mam vartamanuvartante manushya partha sarvashah. So, as you can see, we can take a few hands. The reason I picked up this shloka is because surrender is the buzzword here. Now we're going to talk about surrender, and then there's another shloka as well. So let's take a few hands and then we'll get started.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Shyamji, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tastathav bhajamyaham mam vartamanuvartante manushya partha sarvashah. Radhe Radhe.
Nice, Radhe Radhe.
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tanstathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashah. Thank you.
Very nice.
Sri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe, I'll try to recite without seeing. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvashah. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Hey, Ramya, you get 10 out of 10 because you closed your eyes and you have memorized it. Very nice. Loved it. We'll take one more hand on this one and then we move to the next one because we have two shlokas.
Yes. Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tastathav bhajamyaham mam vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Radhe Radhe.
Sarvasha. Very nice. Thank you. Let's take one more hand on this one. I see quite a few.
Yes. Tarun ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Tarun ji.
Radhe. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tanstathaiva bhajamyaham mam vartmanu vartante manushyaha partha sarvashah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tarun ji. So in this shloka, Lord is saying that in whatever way people surrender unto me, mam prapadyante, then he says, I reciprocate accordingly. Now, this is a divine rule. Like we have spiritual laws, we have certain divine laws as well that God abides by. Why God is respected is because he's not whimsical. He has certain laws and he follows it to the letter T. And this is a very important spiritual law. I'll talk briefly about it. Then he says, everybody follows my path knowingly or unknowingly, a son of Pritha. So we'll not get too much into detail. Just focus on the surrender aspect of it. Now, what happens when we surrender to God? When we surrender to God, God is obliged to reciprocate. Okay, so if we want God to reciprocate this much, we surrender this much. If this much, this much, this much. So basically, we control it. Same thing goes with the law of love as well. So God says that if you say how much God loves me, God loves us exactly the same way as much as we love God. Okay, much more than that, of course, because his causeless grace takes care of so many things, regardless of whether we love him or we are saying bad things about God. He's not going to discriminate. But his special love or special grace is reserved for people based on their surrender. Now, in world, we may be second guessing. Does the same person like me or love me the same way or to the same quantity, to the same extent, at the same moment when I love or not? But in case of God, it is very simple. He has simplified this equation. He said, all right, I am obliged to reciprocate the feeling or the emotion that you feel for me to the same extent at the very same moment for the same person. Okay, he's going to oblige that. But the condition is surrender. It has to be accompanied with surrender. So let's move on to the next shloka and then we'll go into a deeper discussion. This one is from 1862. This says, Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Let's take the remaining hands, 3 hands.
Yes. Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful, thank you.
Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्. राधे राधे.
Wonderful, very nice. Radhe Radhe. Nishi.
Ram ji, Radhe Radhe. Yeah, please go
Radhe
ahead.
Radhe. Tameva sharanam gacchami sarvabhavena bharata tat prasada param shantim sthanam tapasyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Shashvatam. Radhe Radhe, thank you. Let's move on to...
Yeah. Riya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead. Riya ji? Yeah, I can't hear her audio. Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Okay.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्. Thank you.
Thank you. In this shloka,
Thank you.
again, Tamev Sharanam. Sharanam means surrender. So he says, surrender exclusively unto him with your whole being, O Bharat. So God is talking about surrendering to God. By his grace, he's referring to himself only as a third person. By his grace, you will attain perfect peace and the eternal abode. Now, grace is also included here. Tat prasadat param. Prasadat. It's not like with your effort, with his grace. So grace is a very important ingredient in solving this entire equation. We'll talk a little bit about grace also today. Even in Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna narrates or gives him the entire Gyan to Arjun, Finally, Arjun says, Nashto, basically he says that my bewilderment has been dispelled tat prasadat param. It's like he's again referring to it as through your grace. He's not saying because of my intellect or because of, my focus, intensity in listening to you and being able to grasp what you are saying. He said, by your grace, now my delusion or bewilderment around my current situation has been dispelled. So grace is a very, very important ingredient on this path. And the principle to attract grace is surrender, or the rule that God follows to bestow grace is surrender. So we'll talk about both these concepts. They go hand in hand. We'll start off with the grace and then we will talk about the surrender aspect as well. But let's get started with our soul soup segment. We have been talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about happiness, success, and fulfillment, right? Success, happiness, and fulfillment. So what is success in life? Yesterday we came that different people have different definitions, but the most comprehensive definition, as you would see, as we're going to build on this concept, is do good, be good, do good, feel good. What does it translate to? So we'll pick up the first one today. There are three things. Be good means to become the best we can be. Okay, do good means to do the best we can in the works we undertake. And feel good means to experience happiness and satisfaction in life. Okay, this is true success. Now, these are the macro statements, so to say. We are going to expound on the first one today, to become the best that we can. How is it related to true success or the definition of success? Let's understand that. Now, we all have an urge to be good. Is there anybody who wants to be bad? Everybody wants to be good. The reason is that by our inherent nature, the soul is divine and eternal part of God. That's what our scriptures tell us. So we are naturally attracted towards divine virtues such as compassion, justice, authenticity, truthfulness, etc. Unholy qualities like deceit, cruelty, falsehood, hypocrisy, they go against our very intrinsic nature of the soul itself. And we expect everybody else to behave with us in a just and a righteous manner. Now, ironically, look at some of the thieves. Now, irrespective of our behavior and attitude, we always expect justice and compassion from others. There's a code, unsaid code of conduct between thieves as well. You can thief, I could be a thief, but if you steal from me, that is not acceptable. That means even a thief values that robbery or stealing is not good thing. They also have that. That is a different thing. They use it to their own advantage selectively, but nobody appreciates these qualities because it goes against the very intrinsic nature of our soul. Okay. Now let's look at an incident in Mahabharata also. When Karan was named as Karan because his ears were very, very sharp. So when he got stuck in the ground, he got down and began to dislodge it, right? His wheel. Lord Krishna instructed Arjun, shoot him in the back. When his chest is towards you, you will not be able to kill him. That's what Lord Krishna instructed him to do. Now, Karan, he overheard that because his ears were very sharp. And he said, Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord. You are teaching deceit to Arjun. You manifested the Vedas themselves, which are the veritable form of you only. And then you have, given a whole commentary on dharma. And what kind of dharma are you talking about here? Shooting enemy in the back? You are teaching a dharma to Arjun? And then Krishna, what is the dharma of warriors? Krishna replied, Karan, what dharma did you follow? Okay, you are talking about dharma. Let me put things in perspective. What dharma did you follow at time when you took the side of Duryodhana, the unrighteous side? Or for that matter, when Draupadi was being humiliated? And when Kauravas were, taking the rightful hair of Pandavas. So what are you talking about? So the point here is we expect righteous behavior from others regardless of what we do. Now, if you think about the propensity of our soul, it wants to become the best it can be as well. There's a beautiful story about we want to become better at whatever we do, right? We want to do good, feel good, all that part. There's a story about Edmund Hillary. We all heard about it, right? And Sherpa Tenzing, who became the first one to climb Mount Everest. But as the luck would have it, the first time he did not succeed. But then Edmund Hillary, he put a picture of Everest in his room, and looking at the picture, he said, shaking his fist, he said, Everest, you defeated me this time when he had failed for the first time. But next time I will defeat you because you have grown to your maximum potential while I am still growing. So all of us have that potential. Now, being eternal, fragmental parts of God, we have infinite potential. One of the definitions of God, there are two definitions of God, one who is great and one who has an ability to make you great. So in that sense, we have the ability to become the best version of ourselves. And if we do that in any lifetime, that is also attributed as a success. And it's a very objective definition in that sense, doesn't become contextual. It is said that each one of us is endowed with a unique script or music that is God's gift to us. And to realize that music or script that we are endowed with, to reach that is our gift back to Him. The next two, we will build on this, the true definition of success. For now, let's move on to our discussion of surrender and grace that we are talking about. See, this human life, this doesn't come, is thrown on a platter to us. So if we look at that Kali Yuga right now, some people say Ghor Kali Yuga has come. Just to put it in perspective, we are barely 5,000 years or 2008, we are after Christ, we talk about 2000 AD. So, and the total lifespan of Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years as per our scriptures. Pallaviji, you had a question?
Yeah, Nitinji, Aparnaji has a question. She is asking, does Karan already knew that Krishna was God at that time?
Actually, in his contemporaries, even Duryodhan kind of a people would know, but then to what level they could surrender, that was different, right? Because Karna, if he truly believed that Krishna was God, people had heard around that time as well, but I think different people have a different perception about it. And in fact, it is said that Bhishma, and then maybe towards then Dhritarashtra also had started accepting that part. But did Karna know? He knew that Krishna is divine. I think that is what at least I've heard from Swamiji. But then even after knowing that, what was his level of surrender is the testimony to that fact is he did not take Pandava's side. Despite knowing that Krishna is God, he felt too morally obliged to side with his friend who had helped him in the time of troubles. So that is where Lord Krishna is saying, sometimes the very definition of dharma, we get it wrong. Bhishma got it wrong. Karan got it wrong. So sometimes when we think of our material dharma, material duty, we think of it as something which is held at a higher pedestal than our spiritual dharma. And Krishna is saying doesn't work that way. Whenever your material dharma conflicts with your spiritual dharma, the spiritual dharma should take precedence. So there is a para dharma, which is at our bodily level, and then there is an apara dharma, which is at a soul level. When there is a conflict between these two, the dharma of the soul should take precedence. And only a spiritualist would be able to appreciate and acknowledge it, right? So there were people who knew about the divinity of Krishna, but still it's not so easy to, accept that or be able to conform to that in the best possible manner during that times. Okay, so now let's move on. I was talking about the human life doesn't. Keshavji, you had a quick question. We want to move the discussion forward. Is anything you wanted to add real quick?
Please go ahead.
Bring
Keshav.
it on. Yeah, I'm sorry because I heard you said paradharma and aparadharma. What's the difference between the two? Because paradharma is through for Atma, aparadharma is Prakriti. My little understanding.
True. So one it has a bodily level, one it at a soul level.
That is, aparadharma is body level, para paramatma. That is soul level.
I think I might have said oppositely. You're right.
Sorry, please.
No, thank you for the correction. Apara at the body level, para is at the soul level. Yeah,
got it. Thanks.
Distinction between the two. Thank you for correcting that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on. Like I said, the human life does not come so easily. So 4,32,000 years Kali Yuga, you double it, then comes Dwapar, where Lord Krishna had come on. You make it 3 times, then comes Treta. You make it 4 times, then it comes Satyug. You combine all of these, it is 4.32 million years. Right? That is called one Chaturyug. Then you multiply that Chaturyug into 71. That becomes one Manvantar. You multiply one Manvantar by 14 times. That becomes 1000 Mahayug, which is one Kalpa or one day of Brahma. Okay, this is how the calculations are laid out in our scriptures. It is said human birth comes once in billions of kalpas. So this is one kalpa, I said. So that means it's a unique opportunity for us to become the best version that we can be, not only materially, but best version can only we become when we realize the true potential of our soul, not the body, mind, intellect alone. So the human birth comes very, very rarely, and it is a very unique opportunity for us to take really giant strides towards the ultimate goal of life, which is God realization. If we are not able to complete the journey, at least if we have made good strides, God is going to preserve that and make sure that we start from that point onwards. So that is the what you call that unique thing about being born as human, and it is something very rare. So that opportunity, if we once we keep that knowledge at the back of our mind, it becomes easy for us to make add that spiritual dimension to our life as one of the important or the non-negotiable things. Okay, we'll come back to any other questions that you may have. Ipshita ji, let's just hold on your questions for a bit before we can cover a bit of a content, and then we'll come back to you. The other aspect of it is God. He's another name for God is called Jagatpati, right? Some people, they take offense to the fact that, hey, how come you are thinking about Krishna when I'm your husband, right? Think of the thing that he's called Jagatpati. He's the pati of your pati as well. Okay, and technically, soul does not have a gender. All of us are females. There is only one Param Purush or Purushottam Krishna. Like Mirabai, when she went and to meet Rup Goswami in Vrindavan, he had refused to meet women at that point, right? So he said, I don't meet women. So Mirabai's response was classic. He said, okay, who's this another Purush who has come in Vrindavan? I knew of only one Purush. And the fact of the matter is, soul does not have a gender, right? So when Krishna goes after gopis and stuff like that, we should not be really surprised. Some people, don't understand the concept that, what kind of a God, how can it be God if he has married 16,108 women? Swamiji was laughing and he said humorously, that is why he was God. We people have trouble managing one wife. He could manage 16,108 in one time, right? But the point is, it's not a material marriage, right? He's anyway a possessor of all the souls. He's the pati of all the souls, but he picks certain souls to give them the privilege of, making them their wife in his avatar kal. Those are very pure souls. So that's a privilege, not something that he's doing with a material consciousness like people would do, right? Now, what we need to rely on from him is, because, when somebody is a Jagatpati, who's a Brahmand Nayak, and we have to attain him, like I said, there's a secret ingredient which is needed, which is grace, right? Grace. Tat prasadat param, we said. What is grace? Let's talk about that. So grace of God. Why do we need grace of God? We'll talk about that. What is the price tag to get this grace, right? Is it available on a Black Friday sale or part of some deal that we say, hey, God, now I'm entitled for your grace? What is the price tag for that? We'll talk about that. Any special offers? We'll talk about that as well. So let's get started. What is grace? Let's first understand that. So what we are doing right now is called sadhan bhakti. We are doing it through our own means, our limited means, using our mind, intellect, our senses, body. And by doing seva, by putting our mind to it, by doing sadhana, it is called sadhan bhakti. Sadhan bhakti means, sadhan means the means that we have through which we are trying to build a one-on-one connection with God. It is called sadhan bhakti. When we reach the peak of sadhan bhakti, when it fructifies, or let's say it reaches a certain threshold, God knows what is that threshold, then what happens is there is another thing that starts getting mixed with it, which is called kripa or grace. As part of grace, what happens is, in your bhakti, which is your material bhakti you're doing through your mind and senses, he starts mixing his para shakti. Like Keshavji has said, it's para, not a para, which is Shuddh Sattva. He starts mixing it with your bhakti, and then the magic starts to unfold, and then it will set you on a fast track on God realization. So when you sit in sadhana, you may have to take your mind to God forcefully, because it comes back to the world, goes to your spouse, or what that person has done, or this thing happened, or my work that is coming up. It's a bit of an effort, like climbing uphill. But when the kripa aspect starts mixing with it, that's when your mind starts naturally gravitating towards God. And for you to operate effectively in this world, you'll have to step down at that point. So kripa, grace, is a very, very important ingredient on the path of spirituality. Okay, this is the significance. Now, the next question, of course, and it is a must-have on the path of God realization. Without grace, nothing can happen. Okay. Now, the next question is, what is the price tag of how do I get this grace? Some people say, I'll read all the scriptures. Right? People are voracious readers. They want to go through all the things that they can lay their hands on, go through Upanishads, go through this, that. It gives them a sense of satisfaction. Now, if you read all the scriptures, can you say, God, now I'm entitled for your grace? If answer is yes, that means it's a price tag for grace. It's like what you do, and in return, you end up getting something that becomes the price for it. The answer is no. Can you purchase God's grace by, let's say, meditating for 10,000 hours or 20,000 hours or say 1 billion hours? The answer is no. That means that will become a price of God's grace. That means you to do that. Maybe in 1 hour, in one lifetime, in 1 billion lifetime, you will attain God. Doesn't work like that. Just by chanting million times, can you say put a price tag of million times or billion times? If I do so many rounds, then I can demand God's grace? The answer is no for that as well. Can you gain God's grace by performing severe austerities, penances, fasting, and all those kind of things? Answer is that is also not true, because God's grace is divine, perfect, and infinite, and it is priceless. Nobody can put a price tag to it, no matter what kind of sadhan bhakti you do or any austerity that you perform. Okay, only God knows when to bestow that grace. So that means there must be some rule that we have to conform to attract God's grace. Right? What is the price tag for that? So let's talk about that. That leads us to what is the condition to attract God's grace. And the condition to attract God's grace is surrender. Sharanagati, tamev sharanam gach, right? Mamekam sharanam vraj. That is the only way to attract God's grace. Okay. Now the question comes, fine, you have made the point. What do we need to surrender? Right? That question has come, what do we surrender? Right? Is surrender something like a garland? You say, God, here I am surrendered. Can you please grace me now? Doesn't work like that. So what we need to surrender is actually, it's $1 million question. We possess body, senses, mind, and intellect. These are the 4 things we have. Now the scriptures say, Manev Manushyanam Karanam Bandhamoksha and Panchadashi. Mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation. So Vedvyas goes on to say in Bhagavatam, the factual cause of the same thing is saying, factual cause of bondage and liberation is the mind. So we need to surrender the mind to God. Mayev buddhi, like God says, basically, all I need is your mind. By surrendering it, all else will automatically be surrendered. You cannot surrender through your senses. You cannot surrender through your body. You need to surrender your mind. That's all God is asking for. It's a very simple thing he's asking for, right? Easier said than done. So it's a surrender of mind. Now, what is the surrender of mind is what we are going to talk about. We are going to expound on a couple of principles of surrender today. Have a good discussion, looking at some of the practical examples, and then we will build on that for the remaining 4. By the way, one of the questions that came yesterday, I said that little knowledge is enough, right? And then I think the question came in the feedback tracker that little knowledge is dangerous. So when I say little knowledge means little knowledge conforming to the scriptures. Like, for example, yesterday I said, love God. If we simply believe in that little knowledge, that loving God is the essence of all the scriptures, no other knowledge is needed. We don't need to read tons of literature and tons of scriptures and all. Just love God. If we can simply do that, the job is done. So when I said little knowledge, it's not in the material context that little knowledge is dangerous. You need to understand from a scriptural standpoint. Loving God, that is good enough. In that sense, for us to progress spiritually, a piece of nugget that you pick up is good enough from that standpoint. And also we spoke about, then why doesn't it work? When it is so simple, doesn't work. That simplicity works against it as well. Something which is simple, we think it is inferior. Right? Like, for example, if somebody tells you to Anulom Vilom, you just have to do this, you'll say, how can it be so? But you tell that, take your hand around this and take it from your back and hang upside down. And if you do so, now it makes sense. Same thing, if we tell you have to do Radhe Govind, Govind Radhe, love God, you will say, how can it be so simple? We are going to talk about God, the Brahmanda Nayak. But you tell the same person, you have to go to that, Devi's Mandir, which is 28 kilometers of 58 miles there. and don't walk, you crawl. And even better if you go there and then sleep on a bed of thorns, and then put ashes all over your body, and then hang upside down, and don't eat anything along the way, and then fast for 68 days and things like that, and then God will manifest in front of you, you are likely to believe that, because it seems like some action is happening there, right? But if God were to truly demand that, then God would have been somebody crazy, right? He's our Father. He simplified this whole thing for us. We have made it complicated because of our overthinking around this whole thing. So all the scriptures point to the same thing. Even Bible says, love God with all thy heart and all thy might. No matter which tradition you go to, it ends at love for God. Okay. Now, surrender, we spoke that surrender is that of mind, not of your body or senses. Now, let's get into the different principles of surrender and go a little deeper into that. So yesterday we said that surrender is, there are 6 principles: to desire only in accordance with the desire of God. The second one is not to desire against the desire of God. To have firm faith, God is protecting us. To maintain an attitude of gratitude. To see everything we possess as belonging to God. And sixth one is to give up the pride of having surrender. By the way, this is in Chaitanya Charitamrit, verse number 100, which says, Anukul Sankalpasya Pratikul Varjitam. That verse is laid out, which talks about these 6 principles of surrender. Okay. Let's talk about the first 2. Now here, the first principle, you see the leaves. It's not from that Bollywood movie, by the way, Mohabbatein or whatever it was, right? But these leaves are flying. They are completely subject to the will of the wind, right? So if you look at it, this is something similar here, where the leaf does not have a will of its own. It's like wherever you take me, okay, kind of a thing. Now, dry leaf is surrendered to the wind. It does not complain whether the wind lifts it up, takes it forward, backward, drops it to the ground. Similarly, we too must learn to be happy in the happiness of God. So the punchline from Narad Bhakti Darshan is TSS, Tat Sukh Sukhitvam. In your happiness lies my happiness. Now, immediately the question will crop up, right? We'll tackle that. How do we know if we have aligned to God's will? We are not Antaryami. We have not cracked God's mind. If we had cracked God's mind, we would have been God realized. So how do we know we have aligned to God's will? And second is, what if we haven't? Are we violating that principle? Because either you are conforming to it or you're not. It's binary 0-1. For you to be 100% sure you have conformed to God's will, you need to know what's going on in God's mind. And then if you have not, that means something bad has happened. Anybody wants to tackle that question? How do we know if we have aligned to God's will? Ipsita ji, did you have a question in between?
Radhe Radhe, Ipsita ji, please go ahead with your question.
Radhe Radhe. Actually, this is I asked when Nitinji was saying about how to get God realized, and that portion. Day before yesterday, Nitinji, you told that there is a calculation you made that how much time if you give in sadhana or in bhakti, then in how many years you are going to achieve God realization. So if you can...
Just a small correction. I did not say that how many years if you give, you will get God. I all said how much effective time do we have in any typical...
Yes, that is the thing. Yeah, I'm sorry if I said that.
Because that
so
would become
how
a
much...
price of God realization. If I say you give this much time and you realize, that becomes a price of God realization.
No, that is the effective time. Yes. Okay. So if you can elaborate on that topic after of course, after completing this topic, then if you can make a session on that, then it will be very helpful to us.
Sure, I'll give you some numbers and we can go over that. It's a pretty fascinating metric if you look at it. When I did the session on Param Yoga 2.47, that's where I brought in that metric. It's for us to have an appreciation of, or to put this thing in perspective, how much effective time do we really have in every human life? Now that we know that we get human life so rarely, right?
Yes, that is the main point. That whether we are going to get human life next also or not. So utilizing the full human life that I got in this life. Sure. So for that, I am requesting you if you can please make a session on that.
Sure. We'll bring that part to it. So thank you for asking that. But now let's get
Thank
into
you.
the discussion. How do
Radhe
we
Radhe.
Radhe. Thank you, Pishita ji.
Hmm.
We have aligned to God's will. Is there a formula anybody has? How would we know that? It's a very interesting question, right? Yes, Nitin ji. It's very rarely Nitin talking to Nitin. So please go ahead.
Radhe, Nitin ji, please go ahead.
Radhe, Namaskar, sir. Sir, the question which you ask us, ki how do we know? Sir, whatever karma we do, we don't say that it is happened by me. When our pride, when ahankar goes, we see that it is happening by the will of the God. So when that, as you have only told us, when that aham goes, then only we realize it is the will of the God. So whatever happens, a good or a bad, we always say it is not done by me, it is done by that Paramatma, that God. So when that state comes automatically, I think I may be wrong, my words may, but automatically we only come to know I am not the one who is doing. It is done through me, by him only. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Very nice, Nitinji. I'll elaborate on it a little further. Let's maybe take one more hand and then we will continue on this discussion, and then we'll take the remaining two hands after that to see if they have anything more to add. Yes, go ahead, Sandhya.
Yes, Sandhya ji, Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe. So how do we know if we have aligned to God's will? I mean, one thing is, I think that inner intuition, like that sense of peace, and like you will feel that if you are aligning with what God wants you to do in some sense. But another thing is God's words are there with us, right, in the form of Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic scriptures. So if we align to those and then perform our actions with the pure intent, then it is very likely that we are aligning with God's will.
Very true. So let me build on that a little more and then we'll come to the remaining hands. So how do we know if we have aligned to God's will? See, the simple thing is, yes, if we are aligning to the teachings of God and Guru, right? What Bhagavad Gita says, if we follow that principle, of course, we are aligning to God's will. Goes without saying. But practical situations could be very tricky, right? In this particular situation, what would you do? How would you deal with this particular person or relative who's playing on your nerves? Or in this particular situation, when you may have some ethical dilemma and stuff like that, those situations can become very tricky. Now, the thumb rule around this is that, like you said, if the feeling after the act is that of peace, your inner peace, and it's giving you a good feeling after the fact, then there is a good chance you have aligned to God's will. But if the feeling that follows after that act is that of restlessness, something twitching in your heart, that means you can be rest assured you did not, because intuitively you would know. One of the good things that happen on the path of spirituality is your intuition starts getting harnessed. So it starts knocking more on your soul than your intellect. Currently, our intuition is harnessed through our intellect for most parts. But when your soul, you start awakening that, your intuition starts becoming powerful. Now, let me give you another example. It is a little bit like this. If any one of you has played any sport, racket sport, like cricket, badminton, table tennis, when you hit a shot, like I have played a lot of tennis and I've played a lot of cricket. When you hit a shot and the ball has hit the sweet spot, you just know it. You just know it has hit the sweet spot. Okay, and it's going to go for a 6, or you are going to get caught, right? Rohit Sharma, he knew it immediately after hitting that shot. He's in trouble. Dhoni immediately knew after hitting that shot that is gone for a 6 and India's won the World Cup. So that hitting that sweet spot is a very intuitive feeling. Anybody who has played sports would know that. Something similar happens when you do some act, and the feeling that you would get is some good feeling. That feeling that is that follows after that act would give you a good indication whether you have aligned to God's will or not. But that feeling could mislead you as well, right? There could be occasions when you are still not sure whether you did what you did, following your intuition or hitting that sweet spot, was that the best thing? Or did it really confirm to God's will or not? In those cases, Swamiji has given a very beautiful formula. He said, sincerity and purity of intention is your insurance policy. So you are covered. So even if you have not aligned to God's will, if you have done it with a purity of intention and sincerity at heart, God knows that he has to still give you credit for that. That is your insurance policy around it. I hope that put things a little bit in perspective and makes it easy. How should we go about situations around it? But the key thing is, whatever situation we are subjected to, when we start whining, when we start complaining, or when it starts bothering us, that's a trigger point, because it's a bother, right? Something did somebody to you which did not meet your expectation because I expected so much. Then you've already violated that principle. And that is where spiritual knowledge will comes in very handy to tackle those situations. For example, most of the problems that we have with our relatives only, right? Some friend, maybe your spouse, they did not meet your expectation. You expected them to act in a certain way. But when you understand the deeper spiritual principles, we all are a combination of three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And to two people to have same gunas, same propensity, same tendencies, same mix, same proportion of that at the same time, statistically, mathematically, probabilistically, it is zero. Okay, so two people having conflicts in thought process or not meeting expectation should not come as a surprise to a spiritualist. But somebody who's novice, who has mundane consciousness in a conditioned state, would say, oh my God, why did he do that? I mean, actually, there's no reason for us to get disappointed from somebody if you truly understand. It's like going to a hospital or a mental asylum and complaining, hey, why are you mad? Anybody in this world can do anything to anyone at any point, and it should not come as a surprise, especially if you're on the path of spirituality. This world, the reason relationships are maintained is because people have behavioral competence, right? They balance it out with each other. But then inherently, we are not capable of providing each other happiness. It's like a beggar asking another beggar for happiness. So whatever is happening around us, it's like having that acceptance that everybody is perfectly situated where they need to be. There's a reason something is happening. There's a reason why you are put with a set of people or a particular situation that is coming in your life. It's not happening, by a random occurrence. So just get out of that situation, bring it on. I'll come out of it better and stronger. And I will do my soul or myself a huge favor by uplifting myself spiritually, as opposed to maintaining a status quo or downgrading myself. If you have that mindset with keeping the big picture in mind, then every situation, unfavorable situation, becomes an opportunity. And then we do have no reason to complain. In fact, we simply accept it. And when we simply accept it, we have already conformed to the first principle of surrender. Okay, I see quite a few hands. So let's hear people if they have any questions.
Yeah, Nitinji, I see a new hand. Manisha Bhatiji.
Yes, Manisha ji.
Yeah, Manisha ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. So, taking Draupadi's example, what had happened with her isn't she should have think that this was God's plan only, and she should not have bitter feeling for the people around. And like in our life, if somebody is doing wrong, how will we know that this is our prarabdha karma only, or we have to go through this pain, or we should stand against the wrong? How to surrender in such situation?
No, see, you would get to know that if you have every right to defend yourself, right? Now, I'm talking about Draupadi, there was this Muni, actually. I'll tell you a story. So Muni was there there was a sage, I think, when Krishna and Arjun, they were walking through a forest, and Arjun had developed a pride. Oh my God, how such a great devotee he is of Krishna. So Krishna thought, let me put things in perspective for Arjun. He says, I'm feeling thirsty. Can you get some water for me? So he goes to around the forest and sees there is a sannyasi there, with a hut. So he said, let me go and ask him that. So he goes to the sannyasi and he's standing there and he has got, I think, 3 swords hanging there. Very weak sannyasi, and he has 3 swords hanging there. So then he asks sannyasi ji, by the way, what are these swords for? He said, these swords are for my biggest enemies. He said, who are those? By the way, I've forgotten the third enemy, but he says the first one is Draupadi. Okay, if I see her, I'll cut her into pieces. He said, why? He said, for the sake of her, this body, material body, gross body, she called my Lord. She interrupted him from his meal and called upon him. So if I see her, I'm going to take her off, tear her down. Then said, who's the second one? He said, second is Arjun. He made him, become his and putting his hand around him and say, go here, go there. How can he make him work for him and wash his horses and stuff like that? I'm going to kill him as well. So Arjun was like, all right, Babaji, thank you very much. And he ran away from that position, right? And asked, Krishna said, where's the water? He said, we can find it at some other place. So the point is, when you go really deep, even those were not nishkam bhakts. But the fact of the matter is, in the world, of course, we have to go with certain, the what you call that behavioral things that are needed around it, right? Because we are in this world. So if you try it once, right, intuitively, or second time, see, this again goes against the principle of how much do you need to try. I tried for something, right? Let's say I tried for IAS. I did not succeed. I would say I have a prasad buddhi and I don't need to do anything after that. Maybe not. If that was the case, then Thomas Alva Edison would not have given us the electric bulb because he failed, I think, close to 4,000 times. So I think your intuition will tell you, have you done enough? Or is it something more that you could have done? Or do you need to defend yourself, or it's time to let go? So your intuition would guide you at that point. And you would know, is it something that you need to keep standing for, or is it something you need to have an acceptance and move on? So it is a gray area, of course. There's no science behind it. But then that is something your intuition would be your guiding compass around that. And then pray to God, you will get an idea around it. We need to be realistic around our situation, but then scriptures are not telling us, accept whatever comes your way. There was a snake, Naradji saw a snake and it used to bite people. And then Naradji taught him devotion. And this snake, he became very calm. So what happened next time he met the snake? It was squished to pieces by people around, kids around who were playing. So Naradji explained him, when you do devotion, that does not mean that you stop defending yourself. You can hiss, you don't have to bite. At least it will keep people away from you. So I think we get some guidance, as we progress on this path. That doesn't mean that we become a doormat, or that doesn't mean that you stop trying, or that doesn't mean you become fatalist, that everything acceptance, right? You just know what is the moment to let go of it. And that does not absolve us from trying our best in any situation. You do your best and then leave to God the rest.
Thank you, Nitin ji, for explaining this. Manisha ji, I hope you got your answer.
If it is a particular special
Thanks.
question, we can talk about that, but typically how it goes, right? You will get a feeling that, you know what, it's about time to let go of it. As opposed to, and then when to call God, when to accept it. Like in case of Draupadi, of course, she had to seek help. But was she at a state where she's completely nishkam, even beyond her body, where she would not even care? Probably not at that point, right? And God doesn't mind to intervene that. Even in those situations, right? Even when people ask him for help in dire situations, whatever that situation may be, and if it is accompanied by surrender, he has to oblige.
Yeah, thank you for waiting, Kumarji. Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Hanuman ji.
Jai Shri Ram.
So I want to start off with, we have a question on how do we know how much we are surrendered and how much are we following God's path, right? So I have a very similar, this one in cricket, if you folks know, there is a method or a formula called Duckworth-Lewis. So it has been there for several years, I think more than a decade or a couple of decades, and ask anyone about it.
Nobody knows.
Do you understand the formula? No one understands it. Everyone is surprised by it, and like they'll say, just let the computer do its stuff and give it to us, right? Now, in the spiritual world, is there a formula or method? I think yes. It's called the Shiva Vishnu formula. Why I'm saying this is that also we will never understand, right? So how do we know? We have to ask God, right? But God is not visible to our senses. So what we do is we contemplate inwardly, and then we kind of look at our conscience, right? Intuition is one, but when we contemplate, what we touch is our conscience. And we say, are we doing things right? And your conscience will tell you, okay, you might easily override it, but when you meditate, your conscience will tell you whether you're doing things right. Are you on the right path to God? How much are you surrendered? And we'll easily say, most of us are nowhere near surrender, right? These 7 beautiful formulas, or 6 or 7, right, have been given. We are nowhere near it. So that way we will understand that we need to further progress in your spiritual journey. Just one more thing on the Draupadi front. This is a very good example for us. Guess what we do? Whenever we need help, we call people. We say, hey, guy, can you help me? And most of the times, people are not able to help us, or people might say, probably not this time, whatever it is, right? At the end, what do? We call out God. And Draupadi does the same thing. She calls all these Mahaveers, right, in the assembly. No one is able to help her except Sri Krishna. And that is what we need to learn from. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Kumarji. Very true. God should be our de facto. That is the whole idea of surrender. But thank you for your input. I think we have Sri Ramya, who's going to talk about how Bhagavad Gita has been transformed. I think she's going to give a short 2-minute thing. Maybe we can have her talk about it and then carry the discussion forward. Sri Ramya, you there? So as part of Gita Jayanti, we'll be having different people who will come, give a quick video bite on how Bhagavad Gita has been helping them. So I think starting Sri Ramya, we will get started with Sri Ramya. If you're there, if you can talk video on. And
I can see Sri Ramya ji's hand raised. Okay.
Go ahead, Sri Ramya.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Others, please.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji, thanks a lot, first of all, for all the sessions throughout. So I came across the sessions about, I think it's been close to 2 years now. And this was one of the best Bhagavad Gita sessions I had attended, in a way that this clarified a lot of questions for me, not just from the Bhagavad Gita perspective, but from the other aspects of Bhakti as well. And how did this affect me? How did Bhagavad Gita help me? Has my circumstance changed? I would not really, but has my reaction changed to it? I would say yes. And am I still getting tense, stressed? I mean, I would say yes, certainly, but the duration I'm remaining in that tense state or the stress state is much less when compared to before. And I'm able to, get back to my a regular work or in a service mode of attitude, which I learned here. So Bhagavad Gita class, I mean, this is like my bread and butter now. I can't stay without these classes. I have to listen to this. This is my soul soup starting for the day. And it is certainly helping me. And I would like to say thanks for this. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Sri Ramya, for a short and sweet video bite. But like you said, your frequency, intensity, and I think what does R stand for? Recurrence has decreased. So we will keep falling, but our rebound is pretty quick, right? That is one of the gains. And thank you for sharing that with us, Sri Ramya. And it's a privilege to have you. And I know when you started and how your journey has been unfolding. So that's really wonderful and very heartening to know. I'm sure a lot of people will get inspired from it as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this is a series we are starting. We'll have different speakers who will come from time to time. If you want to come over as well, please put it in the feedback tracker and then we invite you over. And this would, all the way leading up to the Gita Jayanti in December. So thank you again, Sri Ramya, for that. Now, getting back to the topic, yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something. The second point, it's basically reiterates the first one in a negative, not negative, but reaffirm it differently, which says that not to desire against the desire of God. So it's like there are ups and downs that happen in life. There are, we get the rubber luck when we get wealth, fame, pleasure, things are going smooth for us. Then, we forget to thank God for that. But when something then we don't ask God, why me? If God chooses you to hit a jackpot, you don't complain to God or you don't ask God, why me? But when you don't get it right or something unfavorable happens in life, we start complaining, why did God this to me, right? Then you are violating this principle. Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate that. But let's move forward our discussion. See quite a few hands. Sandhya, go ahead.
Please go ahead. Radhe Radhe, Sandhya ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. So this is regarding this Ishwar Tushti. So that is just the opposite of aligning with the will. I mean, not just the opposite, but right. So Ishwar Tushti is like giving excuse that maybe God did not want it and hence it did not happen, right? So there is kind of a fine line between these two, aligning to God's will versus doing Ishwar Tushti. And again, it is our intuition and purity of intent which will help us.
So Ishwar Tushti, we cannot use it as an excuse to violate that principle of surrender where we pass the buck on to God for things that we should be taking control over. So by the way, for the benefit of people, Ishwar Tushti means when you say that if God desires, it will happen, right? A lot of people say when Mata Rani's Bulawa will come, then we'll go to Vaishno Devi. Or if God desires, or when God will wish, it will happen, Bhakti will come to me, or if God wants this. This is all called Ishwar Tushti. So we should not be using that as an excuse. We are not aligning. God wants us to exercise our free will to the best of our ability. So don't blame it on God that, okay, God desires, of course, we have to make that effort, right? So thank you for calling that out, Sandhya.
But yeah, I wanted to follow up on that. So basically, sometimes it's actually prasad buddhi, right? Like it's like you know that there is nothing else possible, and hence it's the best attitude to accept it as God's will. But it may also feel like it is fitting into Ishwar Tushti, that so that can be at times confusing. But I just wanted to add this, that because we are not yet pure, but if we also make love for God as our guiding principle, that could also probably help in distinguishing between these situations.
True, and that is where I said that power of your intuition, using your intuition as your guiding compass, you will become better and better over time. Because there is a subtle thing, right? When do you accept and when do you think I need to keep on trying harder, right? So yes, when we do love for God, when we do devotion, we automatically get better and well equipped in all these aspects to know, whether we are trying hard or we are using it as an excuse and putting it back on God. Yeah, and also taking seva from God, right? When we say, God, you have to help me. So are we going to take seva from God? Or we need to do seva for God, right? So even going for God with material boons and asking for that is also not. So it's like, God, we know better than what you think is best for us, right? That is essentially what it means when we go to God. We know better than what you think is best for us. That there also you are violating a principle of surrender. It's like, leave it to God. He knows what's there in our best interest. Do you think we really need to hit a jack with God by going to temple and offering him a few laddus and that will buy God's favor to us? No, we will still do the thing, not something that is pleasurable to us, but something that is beneficial to us. Great point. Thank you. Yes, Lakshmi, we can
Yeah,
take a
thank you
couple of
for
minutes
waiting.
to
Thank
fill out
you.
the feedback tracker. There are still some pending questions from yesterday. I'll probably take it in the next session. From Pratyusha, there are a lot of questions. So Pratyusha will probably have an offline call, but we'll bring few to these sessions as well. But yes, let's hear from a couple of you real quick and then we move.
Yes, Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone. Nitin ji, you said like the intuition we feel after doing an act or some work, that it's according to the God's will we are. But does this intuition or the result or whatever it is, does our free will affect this, or how does that the free will interrupt these two principles?
Yeah, your free will is there. You can always override that, right? Like I said, even a thief knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he still chooses to exercise his free will, right? Through our free will, we can override even our inner voice. That is why people end up committing crime. You think they get from their soul, are they getting the right message? What they are doing is right? No, but they somehow master the art of overpowering it. So free will can override everything. God has given us this free will, right, which is very expensive. Although it is free, but it is very expensive. Because if you don't use it judiciously, we have to pay a very heavy price for it. So yes, free will can override even our intuition. So we need to develop the art of listening to the knock from within and knowing when to sail it and when to let it go.
Okay, thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, thank you. Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji. I just wanted to share this. When something really scary was happening, it was unraveling at my home in this February. All I did was take Krishna's name and repeatedly told God that His wish is my wish. I didn't know at that time if I said it because I completely knew that I could not do anything, in my power. I had nothing in my hand, or I realized, I really believed that God would be there for me. or whether it was just following what actually Anjali ji told me. I think I wanted something to hold on to. That's what I feel. It doesn't mean that I stopped doing the worldly things like, getting help and, all that, calling 911 or calling neighbors. I didn't stop, but, I just, and I was so calm and I knew that, God will really help me. So just wanted to share that. And I also had a question, Nitin ji.
Sure. Well, thank you. If you feel that the acceptance within you is increasing, that's a good sign, right? So I think we need to increase it over time. So that's very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, you had a quick question, Aparna ji.
Yes, this is about the point that you said it takes billions of years to get a human body. Let's say human becomes fish, and fish becomes dog, and in the next life dog becomes pig. And the other Bhogyunis don't have karma or consequences of karma. How can they become any other animal or even human? What is the basis for that? And
God has the algorithm. It's like in every yoni, there is something that you're learning, right? As an ant, you learn to serve. As a bee, you learn to serve. So God only has the algorithm, like he rotates you in all the species, and then when he thinks the time is ripe, then he gives you an opportunity to become a human. But you have to go through all those yonis. That is how he has created this whole thing, right? Cycle. Now, you could fast track your human birth or you could have a back to back. It really depends on your karma around that. But all these yonis, I think there is a purpose for that. And if you look at honeybees, if you take out honeybees out of this earth, then there will not be any cross pollination and maybe you will not have any crop at all in this world, right? So every species is fulfilling the purpose of this universe. And then some soul has to take that position, right? And that complex algorithm is dictated by God. Either it is cyclical or God puts you in a particular thing based on the kind of life you have led. Like, for example, Swamiji in his book has mentioned that if you have made your only goal of life as eating, then you may end up becoming a pig. If you have made your goal of life as sleeping, then you may become a polar bear. Right? So those kind of things can happen. God has that algorithm. It's very difficult to know that. Like I said, right, there are a lot of questions which will get answered when we become God realized. At this point, we only have to understand when we become human, we have to make the most of this opportunity without really bothering about what's going to happen. And that is also part of acceptance. We do the things that are within our control without necessarily worrying about things which are beyond our control. That serenity prayer is there, right? Where we say that God, give me the strength to do the things that I control. Give me the forbearance to tolerate the things that are beyond my control. And more importantly, give me the wisdom to be able to differentiate the two. Now, if you start thinking about, okay, my God, we're going to become human or will, then it is, again, we are venturing into the territory which we don't control. So let's not worry about it. Let's focus on our devotion and deepening our love and faith on God. Okay,
thank you.
I think Shweta ji had raised her hand. Sorry, Shweta ji, if you are still there, please go ahead. You wanted to ask something or ask a question, so I saw your hand. Let's give Shweta ji, if you're still. Please raise your hand.
Let me see if she is still there. I think I see her, Shweta ji. Yeah, unmute.
Yes, thank you, Radhe Radhe. I have a question, Nitin ji. It says aligning your will with the will of God. Does it mean you stop trying after you do not get results or success? And another question is, how do you know when to stop and go for an option B?
I know that is a $1 million question, right? That's what I was explaining, that if he were to stop after our first attempt itself, right? Some people will stop, not even attempt. They will not do anything. It's like whatever God desires. That's the worst thing. Inaction. Krishna has strongly condemned it. That is called inaction, Ishwar Tushti, that we were talking about. Second is they will try, but they give up prematurely. Okay, it's not written in my fate. That is also not something that Krishna is saying. He wants us to, work towards that, realizing our potential. And then the third thing is you keep on trying and then, fretting over it. Why am I not getting it? And if I don't get it, I'll be unhappy, and things like Krishna is condemning that as well. So you have to learn that art, basically. So when we develop in devotion and our intuition, that power will start getting harnessed, and regardless, you do it with your sincere heart. Now, if that's what I was explaining, if Thomas Alva Edison, I don't know if he read Bhagavad Gita or not, if he had stopped trying after the first attempt, we wouldn't be seeing the light as we see today. So people do try, but beyond a point, you would just know that, okay, it's time to move on. Just have an acceptance around it. Okay, it requires a little bit of self-mastery, awareness, and of course your intuition as well. So it's a pretty complex thing, not so straightforward. But what you can do in, you can at best keep your purity of intention around it, and then something inside you would tell you, you know what, probably I'm not cut out for this, and it's time to move on and have an acceptance around it. There's no straightforward answer to it.
Yeah.
If I answered you or not, but that's the best I could explain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Nitinji. It was really a complex question. Yeah, very confusing question for everyone.
Complex, yeah. We have to harness into our inner voice and see, the more layers we can remove from our antakaran. There's so many layers that we have right now. The more layers we are able to remove through bhakti and devotion, the closer we will be to hearing the voice, inner voice or inner consciousness, right? So that power of your intuition or listening from your soul will get intensified as we progress on this path. But until then, we take a best guess around that situation. That's the best we can do. Or if you have the benefit of Guru, you can ask him this question. This is something I've been trying. You really think I should keep on trying this or move on? Guru might be able to guide you, give you a point blank answer on that. Yes, Ipsitaji, maybe the last.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Radhe Radhe, Ipsitaji.
Radhe Radhe. Actually, I want to include that you said the third sword you forgot. For whom the third sword was? It was for Bhrigu Muni.
Bhrigu Muni, yes.
Who kicked Vishnu on his chest.
Bhrigu Muni, yes. Bhrigu, yes.
Yes, that was only my answer. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to say
Thank
that only.
you for filling in
Radhe Radhe.
that was reserved for Bhrigu. So he was such a
Yeah.
big sage that he could not tolerate that his God was called for mundane things and not for something special. That was his level of devotion. So Arjun understood. His devotion is dwarfed in front of the devotion that this sage carried. Yes, Sandhya?
Yes, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. There are few comments. Shweta ji says maybe it is then you seek the advice and guidance from your guru. And there are two questions. I mean, one question actually and one comment. The question is, Swamiji stated that in spirituality we may have to forgive God also, and he may behave adversely with us. But God is all loving, so why would he behave adversely? And would it not affect our love and devotion towards him?
See, one of the definition of love is eternal forgiveness. Okay, so this is the definition of love. Now, God, like there's a bhajan, right? We see that teri kripa to kripa hai pyari, tera kop bhi kripa hai pyari. So God does not behave adversely with us because he's a father who wants to take some kind of a vengeance from it. It's for our good only. He tailors our karma in a manner that we can come out of it better and stronger. Okay, he cannot rid ourselves of our karma until we surrender perfectly. But then even the ones that we are supposed to bear, he picks up that drop which is within our capacity. He's not going to give us a test that we cannot qualify or pass out of. So that much he does, and that's also part of his grace in that sense, right? So yeah, I mean, it's like a devotee, they don't complain to God and say, hey, I'm katti with you because you did this to me. They understand that everything is happening for my benefit only.
And there is one comment from Tarunji. I feel except human form, all other forms are bhog yoni only. No new binding karma and tendencies develops. But if we do good work in human and still get animal form, we might get good tendencies like Jad Bharat in deer form.
That's not a very smart strategy that we have to see. Jat Bharat was a unique case. Bhagavatam has called out that story to tell us that don't get engaged. Even if you have a very high spiritual merit, one thing can derail your spiritual journey. In that case, what happened? He was a very sage of a very high quality, right? And he had done a lot of spiritual sadhana, but towards the end of his life, he got attached to a deer, the baby of a deer, and started taking care of it, so much so that at the time of his death, he was thinking about, okay, who's going to take care of it? So scriptures are telling us, if you get attached to anything, it could be a pet also, then you may have to repeat. And then next birth, he had to take a birth of a deer. But he realized his mistake that he had done and he corrected it afterwards. But the point is, those cases are telling so that we don't fall for it, as opposed to thinking that we are going to progress as an animal, right? But he had, so that example is given us to be watchful, be very careful about where your mind is going. We always find one or two people in our life every lifetime. And if you don't find them, then we find a pet. So we got to be careful around it. Wherever our attachment is, wherever our secret stash is, God is going to give us that opportunity, make us repeat like an indulgent father. So if you're thinking about an animal, and that takes a lot of your mind space and your heart space and your emotional space, then you're not doing yourself a favor. That is the key message. Okay. Are we good then? I think we had a pretty extended conversation. We can wrap it up real quick, maybe one chant for the day, and then we'll wrap it up, because we have a lot of people in 5 a.m. club who want to go to bed early and wake up early. You're welcome to join that. We have Monica ji, who's running that initiative. So contact her and she'll make sure you wake up, and she'll give you a personal call if you don't. Okay. And by the way, I again want to remind you that we will be launching another session on spiritual secrets, right, of Vedic wisdom, and that will be run by our rotis, right, from this session, which is Sandhya, Shefali, Rahul, Arunji, Jyoti, Hasmita, a lot of people. So you'll see some of the flyers coming out for it. Do block your calendars for it. It's going to be an amazing session, especially for youth. So if you have youth who always wanted to have a primer on spirituality, this is the session you don't want to miss out on. Look out for that. I'm very excited. They're launching their session. It's like a movie release is coming up that you're very excited about. So it's going to happen 8:30 next Friday, PM CST.
Yeah, Nitinji, Abhaji has asked what is 5 a.m. club?
5 a.m. club is if you've always aspired to wake up early in the morning, but you did not have a stick wielding master who's making you wake up, then you have one now. Okay. No, I mean, jokes apart, it's like a Brahm Muhurat club. People wake up early and then they meditate, and they made it a priority. David used to attend the sessions. Now he's, I won't recommend you to do that, but he catches up on videos, but he's made that as a priority to wake up early in the morning. So if you wanted to do that and you needed some resource group support, you have it available here. That's what it is. If you need more info, write to me. I'll direct you to Monica ji, and then she'll be more than happy to crack her whip on you. Okay. Starting tomorrow itself. All right. Monica,
All
you want
right.
something?
Yeah, I don't see any more questions here. And I have already posted the announcement links about the Tulsi Viva, and all the links about registration for the annual retreat in Jagadguru Kripalu University, Banara, and one more link I have posted for the for Swamiji's trip also going on, events going on in your city. Right now it is in Vadodara. Please take advantage of this and meet Swamiji in your city.
Yes.
Yes. Radhe Radhe. So no weapon for sure, but then yes, I follow pretty aggressively in case if you're interested and if you think that you want someone to follow up with you, because my personal experience, sadhana in the morning is completely different. I mean, the connection you find with Krishna there, Radharani there, it is, I mean, you have to experience on your own. So in case if you're looking for something like that, in that group, we just get up and say either Radhe Radhe or folded hands. That's it. We don't talk, nothing. Everybody gets up, just post their folded hands there, and we know that this person made it. Especially I, because if you don't, then I'll follow up with you separately.
And if you're on your own, okay, after 21 days, then feel free to go. I mean, there's no compulsion as such. And let's make it difficult for Krishna that whose meditation he chooses to go into, right, for that day.
Exactly.
So let's Did some work for Krishna. Okay. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Like you said, if one devotional, I could sing 2 lines, but yeah, I mean, if time allows.
We'll hear Keshavji and then you can sing and then we'll wrap it up. Yes, Keshavji, you wanted to add something?
Please go ahead, Kesavji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. The answer, Radhe Radhe. The answer to that today's question, if my surrender is accepted by Purushottam Krishna or not, it reminds me of chapter 15, the shloka, Sarvasya Chaham Hirdi Samnisto Matta Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha Videsha Aham Vedyo Vedantid Vedvid Chaham. So these 4 requirements, if these are fulfilled, only then I know I am capable and my surrender has been accepted. And the number 1 is Sarvasya Chaham Hirdi Samnisto Matta. Mat. What is Mat? Buddhi. My mother used to say to we are 4 brothers, ਇਹਦੀ ਤਾਂ ਮੱਤ ਮਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਹੈ, you know, like ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਮਿਕਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਇਹਦੀ ਮੱਤ ਮਾਰੀ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤ ਬਾਤ ਕਰੇ ਤਾਂ. So what is mat? In Purushottam Krishna's wording, surrender to Purushottam Krishna alone. That is mat. Mata Smriti. Smriti is Gita Gyan. Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Smriti. Sarvasya Chamati Samnishta Mata. Smriti Gyan. The Gyan, the wisdom, the truth, the transcendental knowledge of Smriti is Gyan. If Gyan has come here, Matta Smriti Gyanam Apohanam, then detachment, Apohanam, with every worldly thing, including anything and everything. Then my surrender is being accepted. And in the last 3, 4, 5 days, I have got the ultimate message in my early morning meditation that I do, which goes for about 1 hour. Let's put this way. So the ultimate message has come and makes me, maybe because of you people's help, you let me come here, I listen to you, and it is helping me. Thanks, Nitin Bhai.
Thank you
Radhe
so
Radhe.
much, Keshavji. It's always a privilege to hear from you and your deep understanding of so many shlokas in Bhagavad Gita. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Very nice. Yes, Sandhya, all yours. Let's do a quick chant and then we can wrap it up.
Okay, as we were talking about purity, so these are just 2 lines about that. पता नहीं किस रूप में आकर नारायण मिल जाएगा, निर्मल मन के दर्पण से वह राम के दर्शन पाएगा, राम नाम के साबुन से जो मन का मैल छुड़ाएगा, निर्मल मन के दर्पण में वह राम के दर्शन पाएगा, पता नहीं किस रूप में आकर नारायण मिल जाएगा, निर्मल मन के दर्पण में वह राम के दर्शन पाएगा. That's it. Done.
Very nice, short and sweet, beautiful.
Jai Shri Ram.
Nirmal Man is the key. So we need to work on our cleansing ourselves and everything else will fall in place, right? Ash is the key word. Ash. What is ash? Antakaran Shuddhi. Okay, Antakaran Shuddhi. So remember that. When we have Shuddha Antakaran, Ram will automatically manifest in that. So thank you everybody again for your enthusiastic participation. Tomorrow is the quiz day, right? Rahul, you wanted to say something? By the way, please wear your thinking hats on and prepare well because tomorrow we are going to have a very competitive quiz. It's going to be an individual quiz, not the team quiz. So I look forward to your participation. Our quiz master would be ready as well. Go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Since we were talking about Sri Ram, I also wanted to sing 2 lines here. It is just शबरी की जाति क्या थी गोविंद राधे भक्ति राम को भी झूठे बेर खिला दे. राधे राधे.
Wah, wah. Very nice.
It's from Radha Govind Geet. So yeah, just
Very nice. Beautiful lines. Okay, great. So with that, we come to the end of today's session. We'll continue our discussion. By the way, tomorrow is going to be quiz, so we will recap a lot of concepts and make it very fun and engaging and a bit competitive as well. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe, have a good day and a wonderful rest of your evening from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitinji, for another awesome session. And thanks to all of you for your wonderful participation. Stay blessed, stay safe. See you all tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you very much. Bye. Good night.